Hello. Hello. Hi. It's like, thanks. Good to hear you. I wanted to play a little game to get started, and that is called Unlocking My Computer. But also, let's do this. I want some participation because we just got a break. So humor me. I say view, you say source. View. Source. View. Source. View. Thank you very much. You're the greatest crowd. I can't see any of you, but I love you very, very much. My name is Tejas. That's pronounced like contagious for those of you who need to get used to my exotic Indian name a bit. My slides aren't changing on this machine. I have no idea why. My laptop does show the latest slide, so I'm not sure what to do here. But the clock is ticking, so. Yeah, view. What? You drunk? Let's try view. All right, cool. It's updating. Wonderful. Let's hear. There's a person back there. His name is Marcel, and he's been working really hard to make sure all this stuff works. Can we hear it for Marcel, everybody? Marcel! Yes. Anyway, as I said, my name's Tejas. That's pronounced like contagious disease. I don't have anything contagious. I will not give you anything besides hopefully a good talk. And I work in Germany at a company called Contiamo. We help our customers kind of access their own data and enable AI use cases. And that's a lot of buzzwords, but really what I love about my job is the people I work with. Like, these are the people I go see every day, and they are smart and funny and all kinds of wonderful. We're not even hiring right now, I don't think. I just thought I'd share that because I like them. But we're not here to talk today about me. We're here to talk about CSS, the cascading style sheets, the style sheets that cascade. And what we'll do is we'll talk about CSS, kind of how it was back in the day. We'll look at CSS then, and we'll look at CSS today, and we might, if there's time, do some CSS that's coming up. And you know, we have quite a bit of content, so I think we should just maybe get right into it. CSS back then was marvelous. And I started with CSS when I was like 8 years or 10 years old, and it was very different. Something like animating graphics or placing transparent backgrounded images on a page was not easy. Like, you'd usually have to have something looking like this. And this is a GIF or GIF, depending on how you speak and prefer to pronounce the word. But they didn't support very many colors back in the day, so like transparent backgrounded things would look a little bit odd. Moreover, to do things like this was really difficult, and when you did it, you felt this like satisfaction. Whoa, I created something with rounded corners, a drop shadow, alpha transparency gradients, and so on. This, in my day, wow, I sound old. Back in my day, this was a tabular layout with 3 columns, and the top left had like a GIF or GIF with a rounded corner. The middle was like a 1 pixel wide thing that stretched with background repeat, and the top right was a rounded corner. So it was hacks upon hacks upon hacks, and in some cases, we didn't even do the tabular. We just did a background image of this fixed size box, and we're very careful with padding to not overflow it, because if we did, everything would break. Sometimes we'd get the rounded corners wrong, and your box would kind of bleed out of your hack. And I tell you these things because I want to just appreciate that all of these things and hacks that we once used to write are now 2 lines. Yeah, that is worthy. Who said woo? That is just incredible. You can do this with 2 lines. Now, moreover, I used to struggle with layout. I don't struggle with layout anymore, thanks to Hui Jing, who did an incredible job just before. But this, like, what is clear fix? Like, growing up, I clear both. Clear, but what does that mean? And I think I didn't even figure this out when Flexbox became a thing, right? But this is kind of how we used to do side-by-side columnar layout. And of course, this hack, or maybe workaround or whatever, has been reduced to more or less 1 line. Incredible. And so what I'm here to tell you today, I tell you these things to drive home the point that CSS is evolving. And CSS is growing fast and is enabling all kinds of beautiful user experiences on the web. In fact, because CSS is evolving, today we need to talk about CSS on today's web platform. I tell you why, because it might evolve before we stop and appreciate it today. And that's what I'd like to do with you. So we'll talk in detail about 3 topics. First one is layout. We won't spend a lot of time here because, again, Huijing, oh my goodness. I learned so much. I didn't even know you could animate grid. That is, I'm going to play when I go back to work. Second topic, typography. What's coming up with typography? What do we have with typography today? And third, extensibility. And as I said, we need to move a little bit fast, so let's get right into it. Layout. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about layout because, again, wonderful talks before. But what I am going to do is kind of go through the way we do layout and try to answer one question that comes at me very often, like even in my job today. Let's try and do this. So I'd like to show you today. So we're going to write, as Ruth said, I've been talking quite a bit, so I'm going to write code for most of this. So let's make a folder. Let's call it talk. I don't know. And we'll go into it. Can y'all see, is that font size okay? Okay. 2 of you are. It's wonderful. I'm going to make an HTML file. Let's get the font size up here. And we will just write an HTML document. And what I want to do is I want to create a container with 2 boxes. So I will just use the shortcut and box and another box. And we'll say this is box 1 and this is box 2. And I want to illustrate a use case that actually people on my team even asked me about and try and solve it today. We'll create another CSS file that we'll reference right here. So I think it's link, cool, index.css. And let's spin up an HTTP server to kind of show us what's going on here. So we'll do that with no cache. And so what we have running here is literally nothing. I'm so proud of myself. This is the pinnacle of my career right here. Blank page. Technically, it's fast because there's no code. Anyway, let's write some code. So let's give our boxes some color here. So we'll say background red. And we'll give it dimensions. So width 50, height 50. And let's see what they look like. They look like nothing. I think I may have written some wrong. Oh, what is that? Okay, there we go. So they're both red, but I want to distinguish them. So we'll say box 2 has a blue background. Right. And so layout, we're talking layout. Positioning things is what people sometimes struggle with. I want them side by side. And so I see this on the web today where we'll try and do something like this. And I don't fault you, that works. But there's some odd space between them that comes from I don't know where. And if we inspect this, what we'll see is there's no margin or really anything splitting them up. Let's go here. And what we see is that there's just space between them. That's okay, but what happens if the height of the second one is uneven? So if I have these, right? And it goes to the bottom for some reason, but I want to align it to the top. So I'll use vertical align top, and this follows. I'll use vertical align middle, because really I want them centered, and then it goes under the bottom. I don't know why, and this is not to ridicule the platform, this is just something that I've struggled with, and other engineers I know struggle with personally. And lastly, there's bottom, which is also not quite the bottom, but baseline is. And so this is something we collaborate on extensively in pull requests at my work. There's obviously Flexbox, which many of you have heard of. According to the State of CSS, the survey, 90+% of people have heard of and use Flexbox. And Flexbox is an amazing mechanism because it moves the responsibility of layout to the parent, which is kind of where I'm going. And I believe that's the right way to do it. So we'll style container and we'll say display flex. We will remove the rest of the inline block stuff. So the children don't know about their placement, the parent does. And what we'll see is, bam, they're side by side. We want a gap between them. This, unfortunately, doesn't work in Chrome, but it does in Firefox. It's coming. Instead, let's talk briefly about how we space these children. That's what I want to answer today. Who owns the margin? Some would say, well, do margin right on both or one. And so do that. There, they're spaced. Is that the best solution? I'm not convinced. And I'm not convinced because in a situation, say on mobile, where children would wrap, and we'll simulate that here, what would happen is this, which kind of looks okay, except you've lost your gap, and there's some ghost margin going on here. This is accentuated if you apply a margin left to the second child instead. And then on mobile, you have this odd space offset. So who should own the margin? And my answer, from experience, that seems the most correct to me. I may be wrong, correct me if I am. The answer of who owns the margin seems to be the parent. So if we turn this flex into a grid, we can get rid of this simulation here. And what we do is we describe our grid template columns to be min content and min content. Or, again, Hui Jing's talk will tell you what to use here. We have the same layout. What happens on mobile? I could, via a media query, specify a different CSS rule, and I have a wrapping layout with just minimal character changes. Now, rows, apologize. And that's what it looks like. So to answer the question for layout, who owns the margin? For me, the answer is the parent. The parent kind of lays things out, and the children sit there and look absolutely pretty. Next topic, typography. On the web, typography allows us to do incredible things. Like we create these experiences on the web that allow people to feel things. And that's what I love about the web. It's about expression. We do that with fonts. Unfortunately, however, fonts have come under some fire, particularly the famous web fonts. And this is because some of them can be quite heavy. Like you ship a lot of code to you. You ship like 100 kilobytes in some cases of just fonts. And that's because you load character sets and glyphs that maybe you don't need. You can use things like gzip and Brotli to compress them. But there could be a way you could help this. And that's kind of my goal to talk about this. I want to show you a trick I learned from the documentation of like Google Fonts that could help you with web fonts. Let us explore. So let's go back here. Let's go to Google Fonts. And what we'll see is a beautiful set of fonts. Let's use Big Shoulders Display. I like this name. I'd like big shoulders someday. I'll use it, and there seems to be a bug here because I can't really, I guess it works on a wider layout. Does it open? There we go. And I will, that's good feedback for you, Google. I love you. Let's try to serve. Let's import that font right here and tell the body tag in CSS. Everything is now Big Shoulders. Font family is Big Shoulders Display. And fall back to a serif if you can't find the glyphs. And that looks like, oh, we need text, of course. H1, view source, woo! P, lorem ipsum, I don't know. Save. There we go. So it looks like this. It looks pretty cool. But let's look at the network. What am I loading here? Let's take a look at the font in the DevTools. And I'm loading 11.9 kilobytes, which is actually not that bad. I've seen way worse. Can we do better? I've learned that you can tree shake your fonts, which is quite cool. So I have view source here. And let's say I want to just load just those glyphs from Google Fonts. I can do that by going to this, where are we? Here, and adding a query param and text equals these characters, maybe the exclamation point, and reload. So this is the font, but this is serif, and we're loading from 11 KB, we're loading 1 kilobyte. We can even, you probably shouldn't do it, you should find a better way to do this, but I'm just gonna, whatever. Let's try this, dot replace globally with nothing. So we've stripped the spaces. I love the web. And then we'll save this. And now we're loading just the glyphs on the page. From 11 kilobytes to 3.2 kilobytes. We're shipping less code because we're tree shaking our fonts. And that makes the impact, the performance impact from your web font significantly less. But I think we can do even better. And this is where variable fonts come into play. Variable fonts are incredible. They allow you to express different types of typography, pun intended, with just one font. And this is great for performance, but also it's great for sending fewer requests and waiting for fewer responses. Just imagine your user in a country where the internet is intermittent or going through a train, right? You don't want to load in this odd state of I have some of the font but not all, and then you have all kinds of flash of content. Variable fonts allow you to load one font file and then tweak them. A great example of this is this, ampersand is a web typography conference, and their webpage was built using variable fonts. Like, on this page, I'd encourage you to go explore. There's, I think, 2 fonts, if not less. I inspected it, I saw 2. And they're variable. Variable fonts are highly customizable, and they're customizable using axes. Axes are equivalent, I'd say, to like parameters of customization. Think about a function in JavaScript, if you're more familiar with that, with input parameters. It's kind of like that with axes and variable fonts. There are built-in axes, kind of standard, I'd say, that have CSS equivalents, at least mental model-y. These axes are ital, which will use an italicized font or a italicized glyph of the font with different placing. There's the slint or slant, and this will not use italicized glyphs, but will use Roman glyphs, maintain the baseline, and slightly slant them. There's wugt, am I saying that right? Also known as weight, thickness. There's width, which is the width of the font, how wide are your glyphs. And lastly, there's the optical size. And this optical size I love because it helps you with, let's say, when your text is smaller, it will emphasize them a bit more. They get thicker strokes, nicer, wider serifs. And when it's bigger, they get more gentle strokes. So it's a really beautiful optimization. These have equivalents in CSS rules that are these, essentially, that can help you think about them a little bit better. But how you use and customize variable fonts are through this CSS property, font variation settings. And when you use it, it looks like this. It's kind of like a key value pair, right? You have the axis in double quotes and the number, comma separated, until you're happy with what it looks like. And I'd love to show you practical application of this in a little bit of a demo. So what we've got here is a font. I'm just going to pull up my variable font here. So I have a font, talk, and I'll just paste it in here. Now it's available to us. So it's called Recursive. Recursive is free, open source, and beta. So if you want to play, GitHub. Let's go ahead and import that font. So we have font. Is that big enough? Cool. Font face. And I'll say the family of my font is Recursive, and it's located right here. That's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to say use recursive instead of the other thing. And what we'll see is I have recursive. Recursive is like a monospace coding font. Now, let's try and customize it a little bit. Let's say, I think this is too rigid. This is too straight. I want to make it look playful and handwritten. Let's explore how we can do that. Font variation settings. And we'll customize a custom axis. So font authors can do custom axes that don't really exist by default, and you can do all kinds of cool things with them. Let's use a custom axis. They're expressed with all caps letters. That's how you know they're custom. So let's look at the expression axis. Set it to 1. Let's see what happens. So the expression, as you can see, has changed to be a little bit more playful, a little bit more informal. Let's look at 0. Right, it's harder. In fact, you can transition between them. So we say body on hover. I want, I want to have a more playful approach, and we'll transition, font variation, settings, 0.6 seconds ease. Okay, and what we'll see is when I hover, things get a little bit more playful. Let me zoom in here so you actually see that. Look at that. Do you see that transition? Incredible. We can also use a default axis for weight, and we'll set it to 400 here, and then transition to 900, so make it really like thick. Look at that. And that is just one font with so many different variations. Absolutely incredible. You can fine tune, you can do all the design work you want to, and that is variable fonts. I'm really excited about this because it's good performance with good customization and a better user experience on speed and with typography. Variable fonts is supported by like 86% of all browsers according to Can I Use, so you can actually use it as part of CSS today, and I'd highly recommend it. If you want to get some variable fonts and play, vfonts.com is the place to do that, and I'd highly recommend it. All right, let's talk about the last topic, and then we will land this plane. The last topic is extensibility. I love CSS. CSS is so sophisticated. Have you ever thought about what happens when you write display grid or display flex? You probably haven't, because it's so declarative and beautiful. People have even gone so far as to say it is not a real programming language because it's so beautifully declarative. Well, let me tell you, friend, it is sophisticated. There's an engine underneath. Now, so far, we couldn't tap into it, but according to a new set of APIs coming up in your browser, you can tap into the engine and make CSS do its magic and extend it. That should get you excited if it doesn't already. Just imagine the things you can do. Houdini is, let's actually just do a demo, man. I've been talking too much. Let's go and look at some stuff. So we're going to look at a website by the one and only Surma, who just spoke before me. And this is ishoudinireadyyet.com. What we'll see is, a lot of it isn't, and that's okay because it's very sophisticated. There are two things that have shipped in Chrome, Opera, Samsung Internet, and is in a candidate recommendation by the W3C. And these are really exciting. Let's dive right into them and look at what we can do. The first one is typed OM. And this is a typed object model for CSS in your browser. I don't know if you knew this, but there's a global CSS object available to you in the browser that allows you to do all kinds of interesting things. For example, you don't really need to work anymore with like strings like 10 pixels. Instead, you could say this, and you get a typed value of pixels, which you can use for calculations and other things. Typed OM is making things possible in the web that weren't before. And part of that is animating gradients. Like, you just can't do this. Let's look. I'm almost out of time, so I might move a little bit fast, but let's go. Background is a linear gradient, 45 degrees. It's green to white. All right, nothing magic here. And then on let's use keyframes even. Why not? Change from this, right, to, instead of green to white, we'll do blue to white. And then we'll set the animation here. Animation. There we go. Change, and it'll take 1 second, go infinitely, and alternate. So go back and forth. And what? Nothing, really? Oh, I forgot a semicolon. It's not JavaScript, I'm sorry. There we go. So it kind of just flashes and doesn't do anything. And with typed OM, and we're almost done here, with typed OM, we'll look at how we can animate this smoothly. We need a bit of JavaScript for this, so we'll create a JavaScript file here called index.js. And we will register a property. This will use CSS local properties, also known as CSS variables. And we'll tell it it's a color property, right? Its name is, let's say, color stop. It inherits, it really does. And its initial value, its default, is black. And so we have a property that we can now animate and watch animate as a gradient. So we'll animate the property. It's color stop. And it was green. We will move it to blue. And we will here, instead of green, we'll just reference the variable, color stop. Now, as you can see, animating doesn't work. But with this approach, we have a, what? Thank you. I need to inject the JavaScript. Whoever said that saved my talk. Give that person a hug. All right, let's take a look-see. There we go, and we have this smooth transition. Now, I have to say, a lot of tech bros, dude bros, have told me, oh no, that's possible. Just have a pseudo element above it and fade out its opacity. Or, that's possible, just have a wide background and animate background position. But my friends, these are workarounds. These are like having a tabular layout with 3 columns and background images for rounded corners. We live in a day where I can just tap into the engine and do it myself. And that is what I'm excited about. Now, we have 5 minutes, and I want to do some more coding. If I go over time, I apologize. Please don't shut me down. I'll be... Last thing, I promise, is we're gonna look at the Paint API, the Paint CSS Paint API. It'll be quick, I promise. To do that, we need to write some CSS. css.paintworklet.add_module. These live in worker threads, and they work differently. So we need to kind of import them. pw.js, right? We will create a file, pw.js, and paint worklets are just classes, really. So my thing, they have a paint method here with a context, and this is the context on which you draw. So we have this, and we will register paint. The name of my worklet is, I don't know, dots, my thing right here. Great. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and maybe style, I don't know, I'll style the H1. How you use paint worklets is with background properties. So I'll say background is paint dots. This will do absolutely nothing because I haven't written any code. Let's fix that. So we have a context, and we will begin a path. We won't being a path, we'll begin a path. And we will set the fill style to red. From there, we'll draw a circle, 8 pixels by 8 pixels. Radius is 8 pixels. Start angle is 0, end angle is math.pi times 2. It's a circle. And we will ctx.fill. This should, in theory, and so we have a red ball. And the cool thing, this may not look very cool, but what I'm doing is I'm hooking into CSS and exposing this beautifully declarative API. I could do anything I want. I could draw the face of, like, Remy Sharp on the background with this worklet. I don't know why I said Remy. But I can do all kinds of things. So just imagine an ecosystem of paint worklets that give you unique effects. Maybe not so unique if they're distributed, but that give you special effects that you can just use with a background property. We're maintaining the beautiful declarative nature while giving developers superpowers, quite frankly. The layout API in Houdini allows you to hook into the display property. And kind of like how you'd say display flex or display grid, you can say display masonry, hypothetically. You get like a Pinterest-style, beautiful masonry layout, display masonry. This is the power of Houdini. And with that, I am super excited about it. Just imagine. And then there's an animation worklet where you can, in theory, turn the scroll bar into like a seeker. You could make like scrollorama style. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's very, very, very exciting. And with that, let's talk takeaways. What do we want to come away with from this talk? You know, I crafted it, honestly, just thinking about, I love CSS. I have loved CSS. I've loved the hacks. I've loved watching it become more declarative. What do we want to take away? I want us to take away a couple things. Number one, CSS has come a really long way. Do you remember the first few slides? We had rounded corners with GIFs that overflowed. It's come a long way. It is developing rapidly. Oh my good! Did you know about CSS is just a global thing in JavaScript? It's developing rapidly because there is a working group that is open and that cares about developers and users and is listening. You can do border radius. That's because there's listening. And for those of you who would disagree with me, I just have to say that CSS is a real programming language. Like if I'm a CSS engineer, that's a thing. Earlier in my career, people told me, oh, just go push your pixels, leave the real engineering to the JavaScript developers. I disagree. CSS is a real programming language. I think my friend Adam, who's here actually, shout out Adam, says it so eloquently. CSS is the easiest language to pick up, but the hardest to perfect. And this is something he said at a social event that I really, really liked. And so with that, the last thing I'll share is CSS is open. And I'd invite you to get involved because it's really, really, really exciting. With that, hey, thank you so much for listening to me. I really appreciate your time and attention to be here. Thank you very much.